welcome back to the channel. It's Blue Oval Dude here. Just finally getting to some of this stuff. Getting back to show you some of these things that we're gonna do here. I guess there was a request to see what I'm gonna do to the intake manifold. So we're gonna kind of go over some of that right now. I'm not gonna go to it in a whole lot of depth, but I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do to improve that and to get the flow up on that Victor Jr. So that Victor Jr., from what I've seen, they flow around 270, around 270-ish, in there, in that range. 270s is what they flow out of the box, and this is 280 something is what this one flowed now, and I didn't hardly do anything to it, just a very mild port match. Wasn't really exact, but plenty that works for most guys. But now that our heads flow more than our intake, we're gonna fix this problem right now. All right, guys, so one thing I did here is we're gonna get an exact match from our heads onto our intake. So I took Dychem, and obviously you can see I took a red Dychem and I put that and I laid it out around the ports of the intake manifold. And then I took high spot blue, Dychem high spot blue. This is non-drying, of course, so you can clean that up. And then I took the high spot and I took a small brush, and then I took that and I wiped it around each one of the ports. So that's why we have a contrasting color on the intake manifold, so that we can set that down on here and we can see exactly where it matches up to. Now, one of the things you need to do before you do this, before you lay your high spot blue on there, is you want to set it down and you want to mark on there a matching point, a few matching points, really, so you can set that intake manifold right down exactly where you want and not have to move it around and start over. You don't want to have to start over again. So make sure you make some marks before you do this. And what I did for the gasket, you can see I put tape on it. I put it right where I wanted it to, and then I took blue 3M masking tape, because that peels off and it doesn't ruin the gasket. So, and I put the intake bolts in that gasket so that I knew where that was gonna be, side to side, where I wanted it to be, and where it wasn't gonna have any problems matching up or anything like that later on. So put your bolts in there, line up that gasket where you want, and then I taped it all where I want it to be. So we're going to get this done here and keep going. All right, so we got the intake on here, and of course the next thing, we're gonna snug it down. So I'm gonna put this thing down to about 10 foot-pounds, 12 foot-pounds, something like that. I'm not gonna totally crank it, but I'm gonna put some torque on it so that it can get a good imprint of the work that we just did. So I'm gonna pull this thing off, and I'm gonna show you guys just what it looks like after I did that. Right back at you. Okay guys, so here's what we have now. I bolted the intake down. I decided to put it down to about 20 foot-pounds and crank it down. And we've got our pattern on here that we were talking about earlier. I'll get down here and have a close look here so you can get there, if you can see that. As you can see, most of the intake is matched up pretty well, but just over on that one side on pretty much all these, there is a little bit of a lip here, and so we're gonna go in here and take care of that. So what I did here is I took a scribe, and I'm just marking now. I'm getting that finished up, scratching in there very slowly and very carefully, taking an angle like this and putting pressure down on it and dragging it very slowly down and marking that line there where there's extra material that needs to go. So I'll just go over a few things that I'm gonna do with this thing and let you guys know that. I'll do the finished product, and then this thing can go on the flow bench. So also what I'm gonna do is internally, I'm going to be taking measurements, and I can set this on the telescoping gauge here so I can get internally just what size I want this thing to be all over the place, so I make sure it's the same size basically all over inside of here. I mean, back in there it's going to get tighter and smaller and taller, because that's the way the shape of the port is. They're trying to get that velocity high and stuff. So in this first portion we want to make sure that we're keeping that size the same, so it's mating up good, and we're keeping that cross-sectional area up as it's coming into the head. So, and then back in there you're going to start tapering it down more and more and more. So that's kind of what that is. So another thing that we're going to want to be real careful is we're going to want to make sure that this short turn on every single one of these is laid all the way back, and it's got a straight shot in, and really smooth out this corner and straighten out these short turns on every single one of the runners. You know, over here on this one, and the same thing other side over here, etc., etc. I mean, these are pretty good, but we're just going to do some tweaking on this. So we've got a few of our tools we'll be using for that. I'll flip this thing over, and then I'll show you kind of what we're going to do here. I'll just explain this, I'll get the work done, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like as the finished product. So, alright, so here is, I don't want to horse around with it too much, but here's the inside of the plenum right here, as you can see. So what we're going to do here is, I'll just take this so I can show you kind of what we're going to do. So right here, as you can see, the heights of these ports are the same height, okay? This one and this one. So over here, you can see that this port is a lot narrower. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to lay this wall back in over here on both sides to try and pick some of that up there, and a little bit over here to smooth this out because it's not real straight and everything. So we're going to fix that. And of course we're gonna make sure that these have nice short turns on them and are matched up real well all the way through. And this wall over here, you got to keep an eye on. Sometimes that goes out and then dips, kind of has a round wall on it right here sometimes. So make sure you're straightening that out if it does. I don't know if you can see it in here. I should have more light probably. So that's something that I'll be doing. Another thing, I'll just show this. Kind of wrote this, just drew it out for you. Then I'll tell you what we do there. So, of course, it's easy to do the short ports that are in the center because they're so short. It's easy to straighten these out, smooth them out, get nice transitions in there. But these outside walls here and over here and then the other end, those are kind of a bugger, aren't they? Because we can't reach all the way up in there like we can with the other center ports. So here we have, I just kind of gave you an idea. Here's what a normal shape of one of these is, kind of like this. So, and it's, the shape of that port is like this here, you know, pretty much same size all the way around it. So the section of the port I'm talking about is up here in the turn. This is the part that I'm going to be talking about. So it goes straight in, and then right from here to here we have a turn. So in that area, what we want to do is more like this. This is exaggerated, obviously, but this gives you an idea of what we're going to try and do on the inside of this corner right here. So we want to try and slow the airspeed down around this corner so it can make this corner easier, because these are the hardest ones that are going to be to pick up. So this is what we have to do over here to straighten this thing out. Well, I shouldn't say straighten, but to improve it. So on the inside corner up here, just what I was saying, we want to raise that roof and the floor just down in the corner. So, and just try and do that as far as you can reach, and you probably won't be able to get on the other side unless, I'll show you what I'm going to use to do a lot of this is I've got a 90°, and then I've got a ball style cutter. So that rascal is going to be right up in there. And I can shorten that up a little bit. You know, you can get a couple of these. I've got a bunch of different cutters, but you can shorten this up so that you can get the part you want to reach here, you know, up in this part of the port. And you can kind of work that, as you can see what I'm doing there. So over here you'll be able to reach a ways up in here, and then you can try and get the rest of it from this side. So that will give you an idea of what I'm going to do with this thing. So I'm going to finish marking it, and then it's time to go to work on this thing and get it done so that we can get it on the flow bench and see if we've made the improvements we need to, or if we need to make some tweaks anywhere else, and we'll go from there. Alright, so after a whole lot of work, I'm actually not sure how many hours I got into this thing, but I'm gonna say somewhere around 20 hours into it. I've got a little bit of small things to do, but for the most part, this thing is pretty much finished. So I'll just kind of go over a few things that I did, and we'll just show you from there. Alright. So maybe I'll slip this in there so you can see a little bit better. Alright. Okay, as you can see, I laid this wall back. All these points right here, the original casting, I did not bring any of these back. As you can see, this is something you don't want to do. You don't want to lay these way back. You want to keep these original points right here. That will help you keep some of the torque and stuff of the engine. If you start laying these back, you're definitely going to kill some torque. So as you can see right here, here, I'll show you over here where you can see better. This original point right here, that's still the cast point. If you look close, you can see it. Still the cast is on there. And all of them. Even this one right here. So, I took this little guy right here, and I used that to make measurements, you know, inside all these ports and everything here. Try and get them all the right size and try and be consistent with things. So, right here, this got laid back, this wall, and all the way back in here through this port, that whole thing got laid back. You want to pay attention to lay that, especially the inside short turn of every single runner is where you want to spend the most of your time, because that's the place where it's going to be shorted the most. I guess you could say the worst part of that is going to be killing that short turn on each one of these ports. So that's where you need to spend most of the time, is on these short turns right here. So that's one thing that I did. Laid this back and laid it all the way inside of there. And also over here, I think I was telling you, this got pulled back, and so this is a gentler radius here. And also right here, the short turn here, it used to go down and then loop back up. Well, I took all that out of there, and so it's just one nice radius turn, starting from up here and right down into here to the port roof. So I got rid of that, instead of making a big dip and then coming back over and around. So that's something that I did on those. And of course, spin it this way so we can have a look at this. Same thing all the way around. This wall got laid way back on this short turn side. And this right here, as you can see, this was a big fat rounded point, and it's not anymore. So this got laid way back and took and smoothed a lot of this out and radius this back in there. And especially the floor over here on this short side. And also the port roof, like I was telling you before, that's also got pulled back. And then the top, let's try and get a good shot in here if I can. Right here. So right here, this got widened out up here. Right here. Widened out and radiused in this edge. And widened out and radiused in this edge also. And that got laid all the way back in there. So as you can see, there's that right there. This used to be a big, fat, round point down here. And you'll notice that's a big difference. If you've got this Wins Junior intake, you know just what I'm talking about here. So that got done all the way around these things that we're talking about. And what I had mentioned earlier. And then I'll flip this over here so we can see that. Here we go. A lot of what we did here is pulling this short turn back, like I was saying, and laying that way back and scooting over and around back in there, because that's where you're going to pick up the most amount of flow and the best transition into your port, instead of wanting to just follow this outside wall and over and around. So I want to make sure there's a lot of port filling as this is coming over and around and matching the shape of my port. One thing I'll note is I really pulled the corners down, because really they were really rounded. All of these corners were a lot more rounded than I drew out in that picture. So all the corners got pulled back, way back deep in the port, and especially right here on the bottom and on the top of the port. So there was a whole lot of area that got taken out of there. So right now this port is basically, it has the same shape as the port in the head. And so it's going to have a much nicer transition. It's also gonna be a lot better flowing. And then I can show you this here one. This is, as you can see, nice transition into there, and these are, well, a lot better matching to the head now than it used to be. So that's what that looks like, and a nice shot right here of what we're working with nowadays. And this would flow more if I really smoothed it out, but honestly, I'm just gonna leave this. I'm gonna leave a rough finish on it, because this is a street strip car. So in theory, it really should help my, tipping and small throttle response and stuff like that for street driving. It should be a little less finicky, I guess. So we'll try it. This is something that I've never actually done, where I've left it rough all the way. And so I'm going to try this and see how it likes it. So a few of the tools that I used to get back into these tight to reach places and things like that, and measuring, right here, this is what I used. All this stuff for measuring and checking, that's the stuff that I used. And this 90 right here, that was really handy. And that got used with all these rascals. So I'll show you this. So that's one of them. And then, so you can actually get these pretty cheap on like eBay and stuff like that, and just buy a big pack of them. And you can shorten them to whatever size you need. This one worked really great for getting in those corners and stuff like that, and opening that up. So that was really good for stuff like that. And this was also good for those hard to reach areas way back in there, where I was trying to scoop out those inside like roofs and floor in those areas. This worked really good for that. And this did a lot of job on the other stuff, just kind of the straight cutting on the those dividers and stuff like that. And just in the port exits and stuff like that on the intake. So, all right, guys, I'm not gonna bore you anymore with that, but if you guys were interested in what I used and kind of what I did, I kind of wanted to go over that. So you guys, if you wanted to do this at home, if you wanted to try it, I want to kind of give you a little bit of the tools and a little bit of what I did to help you out and kind of show you what our finished product is gonna look like. So now this is gonna go on the flow bench. It's gonna get flow tested. We're gonna find out how this works now and check our consistency and make sure that looks good. So that's what's going on next with this piece. So that's about where we're at with this. We've got new push rods and stuff like that. That's been here for the engine, so I can get the other part of that done. So well, this can go on the flow bench. That other stuff can get done on the engine. So get this thing done. It needs to get back in the dyno. Things have been moving a lot slower than I wish they would, but they're moving. So, all right, guys, remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, keep racing, keep wrenching, keep having fun with your hot rods. All right, later, guys.